Red Dragon. Here's a deeper dive into Red Dragon by Thomas Harris, expanding on its key elements, characters, and psychological depth for a fuller understanding of this chilling horror thriller. The premise: a hunt for a monster. Red Dragon is the first novel in the Hannibal Lecter series and sets the stage for the psychological horror that defines the franchise. The story revolves around Will Graham, a retired FBI profiler with an extraordinary gift: the ability to think like the killers he hunts. This gift is also a curse, as it forces him to confront the darkest corners of the human mind, often at great personal cost. The novel opens with Graham being coaxed out of retirement by Jack Crawford, his former boss at the FBI. A brutal serial killer, dubbed the Tooth Fairy by the media, is terrorizing families, and his pattern suggests he will strike again soon. Graham's task is to profile the killer, understand his motivations, and stop him before more lives are lost. Francis Dolarhyde, the Tooth Fairy. The antagonist, Francis Dolarhyde, is one of the most complex and chilling villains in modern literature. By day, he works as a film processing technician, a job that allows him to identify and stalk his victims through home movies. By night, he transforms into the Great Red Dragon, a persona inspired by William Blake's painting The Great Red Dragon and the Woman Clothed with the Sun. Dolarhyde believes he is becoming this mythical being, gaining power and transcendence through his murders. Dolarhyde's backstory is one of abuse and neglect. Born with a cleft palate and abandoned by his mother, he was raised by an abusive grandmother who humiliated him and stoked his feelings of inadequacy. These early traumas fuel his transformation into a killer as he seeks to assert control and power by transforming his victims into works of art. Will Graham, the haunted hero. Will Graham is not a typical hero. He is deeply flawed and scarred, both physically and emotionally. His ability to empathize with killers makes him a brilliant profiler, but it also takes a toll on his psyche. Graham's capture of Hannibal Lecter, which left him gravely injured, forced him into retirement. Now, as he faces the Tooth Fairy, Graham must confront his own fears and vulnerabilities. Throughout the story, Graham wrestles with the darkness within himself. Lecter, who Graham consults for insights into the Tooth Fairy, exploits this inner conflict. Lecter's manipulative nature forces Graham to question his morality and the thin line separating him from the monsters he hunts. Hannibal Lecter's role. Although Hannibal Lecter plays a relatively small role in Red Dragon, his presence looms large. Imprisoned for his own horrific crimes, Lecter is a master manipulator who delights in psychological games. When Graham seeks Lecter's help to understand the Tooth Fairy, Lecter agrees, but not without ulterior motives. Lecter secretly contacts Dolarhyde, giving him Will Graham's address, effectively turning the killer's focus onto Graham and his family. Lecter's actions highlight his sadistic brilliance and his role as a puppet master, orchestrating chaos even from behind bars. His interactions with Graham add layers of tension and psychological complexity to the story. Themes: the nature of evil and transformation. At its core, Red Dragon explores the nature of evil and the idea that it can arise from ordinary circumstances. Dolarhyde, for all his monstrosity, is also a tragic figure shaped by abuse and isolation. His transformation into the Red Dragon is both horrifying and pitiable, as it reflects his desperate need for power and self-worth. The novel also delves into the duality of human nature. Graham's ability to empathize with killers forces him to confront the uncomfortable truth that he shares some of their traits. This duality is mirrored in Dolarhyde, who, despite his atrocities, seeks love and connection, particularly in his relationship with Reba McClane, a blind woman who sees him as more than his deformities. The climax: a deadly confrontation. The tension reaches its peak in the final act when Will Graham and the FBI set a trap for Dolarhyde. Using a fake news story to provoke him, they lure him into making a mistake, The confrontation between Graham and Dollarhide is intense and violent, as Graham forces the killer to confront his delusions. In a brutal fight, Graham is severely injured, but the FBI ultimately stops Dollarhide, ending his reign of terror. Legacy and impact. Red Dragon is more than a horror story. It's a psychological exploration of the human mind. It examines the thin line between good and evil, the scars left by trauma, and the lengths to which people will go to understand and stop monstrous acts. The novel's rich characters, particularly Graham, Dollarhide, and Lecter, make it a masterpiece of psychological horror. Thomas Harris's ability to blend suspense, horror, and psychological depth has made Red Dragon a classic. It paved the way for the iconic Silence of the Lambs and established Hannibal Lecter as one of literature's most memorable villains. This expanded explanation provides a comprehensive view of Red Dragon, perfect for creating a detailed and engaging YouTube video. Let me know if you need further refinement.